Everyone, and welcome back to Sikich Live. Before I bring on our guest here, Andrew Campworth, I would be remiss not to say to like and subscribe here wherever the buttons are to like and subscribe, whether that's on YouTube, Facebook, or our LinkedIn channel. Thanks so much for coming. We are always here on Tuesdays and Thursdays each week, Tuesdays at 1 o'clock, Thursdays at 2:30 Central Time, to bring new and exciting topics about ERP, IT, managed services, security, CRM, and so much more. Like I always say, don't be shy. On Sikich Live, we've got a really fun game that we're playing today. We want to make sure that everybody that's online now is able to play along with us. So if you have questions or perhaps you'd like to play this game, I'll explain in a second. Make sure to get your fingers ready and typing into that chat box. We're here live because we want to hear from you, so don't be shy. Today we're talking all about the migration from Microsoft Dynamics GP to Dynamics 365 Business Central, or as we will be calling it for the majority of the session, BC. Joining us today is Andrew Campworth, managing consultant here at Sikich, and was the very first guest we ever had on Sikich Live before, all the way back in, gosh, what was that? May, April, sometime around that? I'm forgetting.
Sometime around there. Yeah, time flies. I was just reminiscing on that too. So thanks for having me back. Good to be back, Michael.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully this means you'll be back plenty more times in the future. Well, Andrew, today we've got a fun game we're going to play that's called Fact or Fiction. Excellent. Well, we're excited to play this game with you. And like I said before, if anybody wants to add in something to possibly stump Andrew, make sure to add that into the comments section here on Sikich Live, whether you're on LinkedIn, whether on YouTube, or on Facebook watching us here today. So thanks so much, Andrew, for being here with us. Let's jump right in here with our first fact or fiction question, which is going to be, is it it's too expensive to move from GP to BC? Fact or fiction?
Fiction. Oh. It's fiction because it doesn't have to be expensive. Everyone thinks of an ERP implementation as a grueling, expensive process, and it really doesn't have to be. There's a lot of things we've done to streamline our process. So really to make our process as efficient as possible. We can work with the client for them to take on quite a bit of the work. So with them taking on some tasks, they're eliminating and reducing costs. And there's also other things we're doing around a program called Head Start that's making the overall process more streamlined as well. There's a tool Microsoft's released called the GP to BC migration tool that allows us to take your GP data and actually move it to BC in the cloud. That's one of the very first things that we'll do to really get a head start into that project and get us off the road.
Absolutely. Yeah, Head Start is a really interesting program. And I wanted to just start out here with that question because I think that we have so many clients or organizations that we're working with that have been through this constant upgrade cycle, right? And I know I am going to get to one of those questions in a little bit, but this constant upgrade cycle of always having to upgrade and always having to do all these things. And in their past experience, it might have been expensive or timely and things like that. So one thing that Sikich tries to do is lower that risk of that frustration and failure by leveraging the years of experience that we have with Andrew and many of our different consultants that we have. And like Andrew said, this is called our Head Start service program. And it provides really successful, predictable, repeatable implementations that reduce those risks, reduce those project costs, and support costs for that GP to BC migration. So something that we're going to reference today, a little bit. And so I wanted everybody to know what Head Start is and why it's so awesome. So let's continue on with the game here of fact or fiction. The next one we have is the cloud is not secure.
Not secure. Again, I'd say that is fiction. The cloud has come a long way from where it was years ago. Business Central SaaS or Business Central Online is hosted in Microsoft's Azure platform, and Azure in itself is very secure. So organizations of all shapes and sizes from all sorts of industries have now seen how far the cloud has come with security, and they're all making moves to it. It doesn't make sense for companies anymore to host servers on site, given there are exceptions, but for the most part, it makes sense from a cost, connectivity standpoint to move to the cloud. So security, as I said, has really come a long way in the past few years.
You know, I've had the interesting conversation with Debbie Altham before about how someone at Sikich who, Microsoft has put billions of dollars into securing that Azure, securing their cloud operations. And that's something that an organization just will never do, with either the servers that are in their closets right now or possibly offsite somewhere. So I always thought that was an interesting analogy there. But
yeah.
So another fact or fiction for you, Andrew. Microsoft has cost incentives for people to move from GP to BC.
All right, you're trying to throw me off here. This is a fact. They do. For those GP clients that have been paying your annual enhancement, which is an annual fee that keeps you up to date with Microsoft services and software, they offer reduced licenses. So instead of paying the full license price for a BC user, you would pay a reduced price. So it makes it a lot more palatable moving from the GP licenses to BC. And even more from that, the GP licenses were extremely expensive. I think they ran about $3,000 a piece for a full user. So they dropped substantially, and then clients are moved to a subscription model where they pay monthly or an annual fee. So definitely fact for that one.
Great. Another fact or fiction for you. Companies should rely on a partner to help them through a migration to BC.
Fact as well. I'd say the key word there is rely on. You definitely want to leverage your partner, such as Sikich, through the process. We're the ones who do this as a full-time job, moving clients from systems like GP onto BC. We've kind of fine-tuned our process. We've learned what works and doesn't work, and we can help guide you through those steps. I think the caveat, again, mentioning in the very beginning, is the client, when possible, can take on some of the work. Sikich doesn't have to be that expensive resource. You can really take on what you're comfortable with and not only reduce costs, but learn along the way.
And partners, like we talked about before, partners have that experience that helps us be able to give this type of acceleration, program like Head Start, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So part of the reason we've developed this Head Start, not to, again, to give our clients a reduced, cost-efficient option, is because we've been able to fine-tune our process. How can we really eliminate certain pieces of the puzzle to do this in as few tasks and really limit the time from getting where you're at on GP to BC? So it's come a long way.
Another fact or fiction for you. So fact or fiction here. BC has too many yearly upgrades, and it's going to be too costly to perform all of those.
Fiction. That one, a common misconception, but it's really the flip side of it. It's a big advantage when moving to the cloud. You talked about upgrades, and for GP clients, they are used to very time-consuming, expensive upgrades. One of the biggest advantages to moving to Business Central in the cloud is updates are applied automatically for you. Minor updates are applied throughout the year that just truly happen overnight. And then major updates, which happen twice a year, you have more control over scheduling and such. Of course, the more moving pieces and the more extensions or customizations you add to BC can add to the steps involved or the testing involved. But it's a much more systematic, streamlined process than what you're used to with a GP upgrade.
Fact or fiction, Andrew? GP and BC are virtually the same system. So what's the point?
You make it sound easy, right?
Yeah, right.
So that is fiction. Again, caveats. They're different systems. They're different ERP offerings from Microsoft. There's a lot of benefits in moving to Business Central. You gain things like connectivity to the Microsoft stack with Outlook and Power Platform and Power BI, really up and down. So there's a lot of things that you gain from moving. Really, in the end, though, as I said in the beginning, they're both ERP systems. You still enter an invoice and a journal entry. So even though it does seem intimidating as different systems, it can really be an easy learning curve for the users out there.
I like easy learning curves. That's a plus for me. So, Andrew, another fact or fiction for you: the migration from GP to BC is just way too long.
Again, fiction. It's not a long process. Microsoft has created the migration tool for clients that, where applicable, can again take their GP data and move it to Business Central in the cloud. So all of your customers, vendors, GL accounts, even your history in the system can all be moved to Business Central. So they've created this systematic process that does all the migration, all the data mapping for you to get you into that cloud offering.
So what about this one? This next question I think could be possibly a little tricky for you, but it's an industry question. BC is only for manufacturers and distribution companies. And I added that one because I've heard this before. So
I think you talked about this on a previous Sikich Live, if I remember correctly. So this is fiction. It's not only for those companies. Although BC does have several vertical markets that it works really well in. You think of manufacturing, distribution, maybe construction. That's not everything. It can really apply to verticals and companies all across the world. So could be anything from financial services to a family office. Really, Business Central can be geared towards whatever industry you're working in.
I've seen a lot of success with professional service companies too, using that, and then that functionality with field service and things like that. So you mentioned this kind of before. So I'm going to talk about ISVs, so independent software vendors. Fact or fiction? I cannot use my vendors I am used to when moving to BC.
Again, a tricky one. I'd say this is fiction. You can use your vendors. Most GP ISV vendors have either created or are in the process of creating a Business Central offering in AppSource. We talked about AppSource. I think we talked about it on our previous Sikich Live, and it's really an app store for Business Central. So if you think of a product out there like SmartList Builder for GP, where clients can customize queries in the system, that same company, E1, has created PopDoc for Business Central, which is a cloud offering to customize queries and reports in BC. Mm-hmm. So I'd say most of the time this is fiction. ISVs are moving from GP to BC, but this could also be cases when ISVs you think of a product like Extender that adds fields and windows of the system. You may not need when you move to BC because some of that functionality already exists. So there's cases when you would bring the ISV with you and others when it wouldn't be needed.
And then our last question we have here for fact or fiction today, Andrew, is BC's out-of-the-box financial reporting is limited.
This is a fact. So out of the box, Business Central has what's called account schedules. And for generating most companies' financial statements, it's really limited. It can't do everything you need it to do. So Sikich recommends a few different products. One is Jet Reports and one is Solver. They're both ISV companies or independent software vendors that work with BC. They essentially let you run your financial statements in Excel and then share them throughout the organization. So although Business Central does lack in this area, there's other other vendors that we bring in to kind of fill that gap. We're even working with GP clients now who aren't yet ready to move to Business Central, but they're ready to bring in a new reporting tool. So clients that are unhappy with a product like Management Reporter have started to use, for example, Jet, knowing that Jet will work now with GP. And when they move to a product like Business Central, they can carry Jet with them. So there's a lot you can do in that area too to make the overall transition much easier.
Great. Well, Andrew, thanks so much. I don't have any more fact or fiction questions for you today. Thanks for playing our game here and letting organizations know all about, not only about the GP to BC migration, but also how Sikich can help with our Head Start program.
Thanks again, Michael. Thanks for having me, and look forward to coming back for the third.
Absolutely. We'll get you on soon. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining. Make sure to like and subscribe, and thanks for playing Fact or Fiction with us today. See you next time.